Subhanallah. Allah. Ya Allah. Allah. Allahu Akbar. Allah.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the world of Islam. We're coming to you today from San Francisco, California, in the United States of America. From Denmark to China, from Australia to Argentina, from the United States to the UK, there are more than 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. The religion of Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, but unfortunately, the true nature of Islam is often misunderstood and misrepresented. So I invite you to join me as I travel throughout the world of Islam to allow you to know the truth about Islam and the truth about Muslims. You are now entering the world of Islam. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the world of Islam. Our travels throughout the world of Islam have brought us to San Jose, California, and I'm at the Islamic Center of San Jose. And I'm with the Imam of the Islamic Center of San Jose, Imam Tahir Anwar. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And thank you for sitting with us and agreeing to spend some time with us. Imam, just tell us a bit about yourself and your educational background and how you became the Imam here at the Islamic Center of San Jose.
To begin with, I come from a family of Imams. So my father migrated here from England in the late 70s. We came along with him in the early 80s from England. We've lived here ever since in San Jose, California.
But Imam, let me ask you, when you discussed with your father his reasons for migrating from England to America, what were his reasons for doing that?
Just to make a better life for himself. He was very comfortable in England. He came to San Jose as he came to America as a tourist. He came to San Jose. He really liked it. He was approached by one of the individuals at this masjid for him to join the masjid. It was a great move for him, very far away from his home country of India, but he was willing to take up the challenge. He liked what he saw, the weather, among other things, and so he moved out here. Brought us along in 1983. I was a young man in kindergarten that year, and been here ever since. Went to school here. It was in my early high school years that I went to India to study in a madrasa. So I memorized the Quran, studied Arabic as a language, and Islamic theology and everything that goes along with it.
And how many years did you spend there?
I spent a total of 8 years there. In the meantime, my parents had moved back to England, so our Ramadan vacations were spent in England. It was during the last 3 vacations that we started coming to America, primarily to lead Salat al-Tarawih at this masjid. And so it was in my final year when the board of directors here approached me and gave me an offer to be the Imam at this masjid.
And this was after you had completed your studies?
This was while I was in my final year of studies.
Okay.
So I had been here 2 Ramadans prior to being in my final year of studies. So they had sort of seen the product. They were comfortable with what I was doing. I was homegrown. I knew the community fairly well. There was a lot of new members in the community, but of course the older, more senior community, I knew them very well. A lot of the so-called movers and shakers of the community, their children and I were pretty good friends. We grew up around the same time. We know each other. So for me, it was a great coming back. For the community, it was someone they knew and they respected and trusted to lead them as the Imam. My father was the Imam here for a number of years in the 80s. He left this masjid to be at another masjid in the Bay Area for a number of years. And after that, in the early 90s, he actually moved back to the UK. And so between the early 90s and when I came in around 2000, there were about 3 to 4 imams who had come in between. And then I started end of 99, early 2000 is when I began as the imam here.
Right. And what is the makeup of the community members here? What is it, the demographic?
You know, I like to say we're made up of about 25 to 30 different backgrounds, people from all over the world, really. Primarily the Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, many African Americans, and then we have a cluster from everywhere. We have in our community here, we have a very large Somalian community, a very large Vietnamese Cham community.
What does that mean, Vietnamese Cham? Is that just a region?
They don't consider themselves to be Vietnamese. They consider themselves to be Arab immigrants who came into Vietnam. So for as long as we may think they're actually Vietnamese, when they go back to Vietnam, they're not considered to be Vietnamese, although they've been there for a number of generations. So they like to be referred to as the Cham community. So, you know, Vietnamese Cham community. So we have a very large number of those. Like I mentioned, a large number of Turkish people also attend our masjid. And then really
And what about in terms of, you know, educational qualifications and professions?
The majority of our congregation is well educated. They are, you know, seniors in their companies, if not, CEOs of their own companies. We do, more recently, we've had a lot of immigrants that have arrived into the Bay Area, and that's sort of made up of taxi drivers and business owners and so on and so forth. But the majority of the Muslim community that has been here, that continues to come here, are fairly well educated. Even a lot of the new immigrants are coming in as engineers.
But let's clarify something. When you say immigrants and immigrant Muslim community, what do you mean exactly?
When I say anyone that's come from out of the United States.
Okay.
So what I mean, I got those two confused there. What I mean to say is that the majority of the people that come into the Bay Area are here because they're very well or highly educated. More recently, we've had a lot of refugees arrive who really don't have any qualifications. These are the individuals that are doing, you know, odd jobs, driving taxis, and so forth. And
when the refugees come to the community, are there any community services in place to try to get them started or to assess what skills they have and can?
You know, we don't have anything at the masjid per se, but we do have different community leaders in the masjid from the various communities who will assess their situation, and if there is a certain need, they will let us know. But we don't have any program in place.
Okay. In your khutbah today, you talked a bit about the importance of being Muslim citizens, being involved and not being isolated or separated from the society. So please tell us a bit about why that's important and how that helps to correct some of the misinformation or just give people an understanding of what type of people Muslims really are.
You know, I believe that you can't isolate yourselves for too long. Generally, it's immigrants who tend to isolate themselves.
Now, give me an example. I mean, what are some of the ways in which they isolate themselves?
You know, they may just live within their homes, masjid, Sunday school, and that's about it. They may not get involved in activities around it. So there's a citywide cleanup, for example. They may not get involved. There's something going on at the city hall. They may not get involved. It's just them within their communities, their friends, and they really don't want to go out and about and mix with different kinds of people. They're very scared of doing that.
Now, when you identify people who fall in that category and have some chance to discuss it with them, what are some of the reasons they give you for not becoming so involved?
You know, a lot of times fear of losing the values they believe that they have, that they bring from back home. You know, people here are different, you know, they eat differently, they do things differently, and we don't want to be associated with them. And so it's their fear. The fear, though, is a little different as well. There are many people who are integrating pretty well in their areas of work and so on and so forth. But they won't get involved in volunteer activities and things like that because they fear that their name may be put on some list somewhere. and they may be watched, and they don't want that to happen.
Okay, you mentioned something earlier in your talk about integration as opposed to assimilation. Just explain that.
Well, my theory is, I definitely see a difference between the two. When I hear the word assimilation, for me that means dropping everything that you have, every value that you have, and just being like everyone else around you. When I'm talking of integration, what I mean to say is that along with my values, be able to live in the society that I happen to live in.
And how big a problem is assimilation?
It really depends on, it's a relative term. It depends on where you draw the line. I mean, as a Muslim American, it really depends on where I want to draw the line with what I'm doing and how far I want to go with it.
And let me ask about your activism in the community and this community's position in the community and how well you're supported.
So basically, this all started, with 9/11. Alhamdulillah, we have at our masjid been active with media and city politics for the last 20 years, ever since right around the time we got started. We've all, because of being in downtown, we've had permit issues and things like that. So we've always been in touch with the city hall. We've been in touch with our neighbors and things like that. But it was 9/11 that really brought a change to our attitude. And we became even more proactive with everything that we were doing.
Well, give us a snapshot of what it was like here after 9/11.
The environment here was extremely peaceful even after 9/11. We, though, did take the sign outside down for a few weeks, but a senior community member called me and reminded me that, hey, look, we've been here for the last 20 years. People know where we are if they really want to do something. But I recall the day on 9/11 in the evening, I called the local police department and I said, I would like the PD to be making a few extra rounds during the course of the night. And I recall the lady telling me, look, sir, we can't do that. You can't make specific requests like that. And this was a time when I knew no one at the police department. And I remember telling her, well, ma'am, in that case, can you just give me your name? And, God forbid, if something were to happen to the mosque, at least I can say that I've called in and I'm pretty sure this conversation here is being recorded. To which she immediately replied and said, can you hold on a minute? And she made whatever arrangements she needed to and assured me that, they would be making a few extra rounds. But, we, by the grace of Allah, did not have any problems at all. We had, our voicemail was set up. I was recording all the messages that came in. And interestingly enough, I think I received about 3 or 4 hate calls as compared to about 70 or 80 phone calls of support from members in the community. And we were checking those messages. And then, right after 9/11, there were services, events, programs in the upcoming week.
And did you find that the volume and frequency of those programs increased at that time?
Of course, yeah. And these were citywide programs, so these were nothing. This was nothing that we were doing per se. These were citywide programs, and I like to tell people as an American that I had been an imam for about a year when this happened. So I was a minor leaguer thrown into the major leagues overnight. And I was there batting, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so I started attending a lot of these events and gatherings as sort of the token Muslim imam with a few other community leaders. And that's when I really got to know people, people around the city, whether it be city government, whether it be religious leaders, all kinds of people. And, and then there was this dialogue that began within the communities. One of the greatest really things that changed was the local council person, a lady by the name of Cindy Chavez. She hosted a community leaders meeting right here in our library, at which point a young deputy chief from the police department walked in. I spoke for a little while. We might have given out a few books or whatever. And, a few of these leaders spoke. And we became really good friends. And then it was, at that point, where on Eid Day, we decided that all these new friends that we have, let's invite them for Eid. We host Eid either at the fairgrounds or the convention center. It's a fairly large event, 5,000 to 7,000 people. And in the morning, when we have the program with the speaker speaks and so on and so forth, we made room for about 4 or 5 of these individuals to speak for a few minutes. So it might have been the mayor, or someone from the mayor's office, the local council person, and things like that. It's great PR for them. It works. You know, you have 7,000-8,000 Muslims from the city gathered at one place. And so it became an event that happened every year at Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. These individuals would come by invitation. We'd ask them to speak. And during the course of these years, and we wouldn't only do that. You know, we'd have lunch with them. We would meet each other at different events. It was during the course of this a very unique thing happened where this deputy chief of the police department became chief of the chief of the police department for the 10th largest city in the United States. But prior to that happening, one day at Eid, he promised that he would fast for the entire month of Ramadan the following year. And that's what he did. He fasted for the entire month of Ramadan. And we know each other very well. I frequently go on police ride-alongs. And
Right.
so,
But let me ask you, after the police chief, he fasted in the month of Ramadan. What was the feedback from him about the experience of fasting?
you know, so it's very interesting. He's a Mormon.
Okay.
So Mormons do fast once a week. And the money that they save for lunch on Sunday, they give that to charity. So he knew the concept of fasting. It was already a spiritual exercise for him. But this was something for him, experiencing this in a very unique and different way. He wanted to do this not because he wanted to be close to the Muslim community. He didn't do this because he would get a lot of PR. He sincerely wanted to do this for his own self and see how it felt like, because he had the sense of religion in him. He knew what it meant to fast. And so for him, you know, he comes back and you know, almost every day in Ramadan he was having iftar and dinner at some Muslim family's home. He said a lot of different things when he was done with Ramadan. You know, one of them being that spiritually it was very great for him. Another thing he mentioned that you know, I came to realize that you know, the Muslim American challenges are like the challenges of any other American family. Sending kids to school, putting food on the table, having a roof over their head, you know, simple basic things. And he made a statement to me and said, you know, at the age of 40, when I got to know Muslims and Islam, they were a strange people to me. I didn't know who they were. But he says, my 6-year-old daughter knows more about Islam and Muslims than I did at the age of 40. So continue doing what you're doing, because people will eventually know who you are and what you stand for.
Right. And tell us about your extent of involvement in outreach in the community, and some of the advisory boards or something you may be part of here in San Jose.
So, you know, another thing another element of this, in addition to my serving of the Imam as the masjid, doing the classes here, leading the salah, teaching at Sunday school, was outreach in the greater community. And this took me in many different directions. One of the ways, you know, I started attending a lot of interfaith dialogues, really to get to know people and really understand what faith meant to them, rather than preaching about myself. It was just to get to know people on a more personal level. 6 years ago, there was an opening in the Human Rights Commission for the city. And I applied for it, and I remember interviewing for it, and they asked me why I wanted to be on it. And I don't recall exactly what I said, but 2 of the many reasons I gave to them was, 1, because you probably don't have someone as young as I do on that commission, and you probably don't have a Muslim on that commission. And Muslims do make up a great, you know, number of people that live in the city. I got on there, been there for 6 years.
What kind of issues do they address in the human rights? And what is their objective? What type of issues are they looking to address? And also on top of that, do Muslims have many issues that they need to present to this commission?
So the commission acts as an advisory board to the city council. Any human rights issue in the city that comes up needs to go through the commission, and then it's passed on to the city council if it needs to go there or not. So, you know, you could have an argument with your neighbor. You could have issues with, you know, parking your cars on different streets and having problems. One of the greatest things that we have been able to address over a number of years is police activity There's been allegations of the police being extremely rude on citizens. The hiring process in upper city management, whether it's being done fairly or not. In all these years, interestingly, there's only been one Muslim family that ever came by for a problem they had with their neighbor. And as Islam teaches us to be just, I actually took the side of the neighbor, not the Muslim, because I didn't feel personally that the Muslim was fair in his analysis of what was happening to him or to his family. So that's one of the commissions I serve on. I sit on the board of a very unique interfaith council which deals with economic justice. So making sure that people are getting fair wages, people are only working 8 hours a day within the various different hotels, airports around the city. I am also on the community advisory panel for one of the local PBS stations. So I mean, these are just things that I have a passion for it.
All right, but let me ask you, as being on the advisory board for one of the PBS stations, what are some of the ways they use you or the advices which they seek from you?
The idea is to bring back that station. These are nonprofit stations. So to bring them back to the community, and if the community has any feedback, to present that to the station. And there have been times, and they do, and they have these small budget documentaries and things like that to spread the word within the different communities. And my take is not only to spread within the Muslim community per se. I happen to be active on a lot of different mailing lists. We have a neighborhood mailing list. We have a school mailing list for where my son goes. And I'll be active in all of these areas because I want to be an ambassador of my faith that's fair and just and good for everyone around me.
And you said this masjid here is involved in a lot of media events and really participating in stories. When the people of the media approach you, generally what is the objective of the type of stories they're trying to do? I mean, are all of them fair and just, or can you detect sometime that people come to you and they have maybe another agenda?
You could sometimes tell just by how they're pushy sometimes. There's a few people in the media that I will accommodate without any problem at any given time. And they'll be honest with me and say, hey, look, we have a story. If you could say a few words for us, it would just really look good. They'll be honest with me. And they really need a soundbite. And I'll give them that soundbite. And I have no problems with it because I know the story is a good story. There are times and certain reporters who will come to you on a fishing expedition. They'll ask you 30 questions, and you realize when you're looking at the news in the evening, they just wasted a half an hour of your time. And so you kind of get to know these people, and so it's based on these relationships that we have with the media but overall we've had a very positive experience with the media here in the Bay Area. They'll come to our events, they'll cover our events, they'll always put a positive aspect to it. Not too long ago I met, the religion writer for our local paper changed, so I, met with her. She came by my office, we talked for a while. Let her know what the community's expectations are and things that we may not be too comfortable with.
And when you told her the community's expectations, what did you tell her?
Basically, the gist of it was that, be honest. Because that's what media is all about, honesty. And, to give her the sense that she's always been taught this, but the media is there to disseminate information about people. And in a day and age when Muslims are already being stereotyped, if you're going to add to that, it only makes our lives worse. And bring it to a real human level. That if you're going to put a picture of someone in the newspaper and I'm walking down the street the next day, there's a possibility that someone may take a baseball bat and swing it at me because of something that was written in the paper earlier that day or the day before. So the implications of what they may write may be they'll definitely be very large, either in a good way, hopefully, or maybe even in a bad way.
Just to change the subject a bit, to talk about Muslims in the politics of this country, because at the local level, at the national level, at the international level, the ramifications of the political decisions in this country, they affect you in your neighborhood, and also they affect your brothers around the world. So what do you tell Muslims when trying to advise them the importance of being involved in the political process in this country at all levels?
I am for being politically active. I have never had a problem or question or doubt in my mind about political involvement. I know there are people out there who may have questions, doubts, and valid reasons for that matter, but I've never had any problems whatsoever. And just like I mentioned in today's khutbah, I was very open about the fact that I had already voted to encourage others to register to vote and to vote. Although I am a believer that everything begins grassroots, and that and change always begins from the bottom, and it goes up. Although there are certain areas in which over at the top level we can try to make the change, but that won't necessarily always happen.
Imam, you were telling me a bit about this award you got from the Santa Clara County here.
Yeah.
Just tell us a bit about this award.
Subhanallah, Allah has accepted me to do a lot of things in the community, both in the Muslim community and the greater community. And every year the county of Santa Clara gives this Unity in Diversity Award to various different individuals in the community who are doing various different works in the community to bring unity in the community. And I was nominated for this award, and just in fact this last week I was given the award by the supervisor of the county. It's called the Unity in Diversity Achievement Award.
MashaAllah. And talk about the future, if you would, about the future aspirations of the masjid. I mean, we see the building is full here for the Jummah. Do you have any future plans for building something?
So we have 4 locations.
Right.
We have this is the downtown headquarters. We have another house/land about a few miles away from here in a residential neighborhood. There's another town close by called Mountain View. We have a masjid there. And then on Fridays, we rent a large hall to pray Salatul Jumu'ah at. So we're basically covering the area. The location that's in the residential neighborhood a few miles away from here, we are, inshallah, by the end of this summer, planning to construct a masjid there. Alhamdulillah, we had a fundraiser in June of 2007, and we're able to collect $1 million in one night.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. So we've been very blessed in our community, and just for the record, that was our organization's first fundraiser in its life of 25 years. So the community really came out. Although we are building a masjid there, that's not going to be our large headquarters. At some point within the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully earlier, we may be looking for a much larger building, a ready constructed building, where we may move our headquarters to. But interestingly enough, because we are in downtown, City Hall is just a few blocks away, and this is considered to be the historic neighborhood. The city has specifically requested for us not to move away. In fact, they became very concerned when we started talking about the new project, and we reassured them we were still going to be around.
MashaAllah. One of the aspects in the Muslim's life is having to travel around the country. And a lot of times people become acutely aware that they're Muslims when they're in the airport. But tell us a bit about your experiences, because you travel a lot. And have you faced any of this, what they call flying while Muslim?
So, I've been flying for a number of years, alhamdulillah. The greatest mistake I ever made was to book a ticket an hour before the flight and drive to the airport with nothing in my hand and try to pay cash for it. And really, I wasn't even thinking twice. But otherwise, I haven't had any problems flying domestically per se. They may stop me once in a while and not all the time on a random search. And I understand that. I look very Muslim. I dress the way I do even when I travel. So I understand that. I consider it to be an opportunity for da'wah, for me to be able to talk to someone who otherwise might not have known that I'm an imam, or that I can speak English without an accent, because many TSA operators don't speak, still speak English with accents. So it's very interesting. But my worst experiences have always been flying into the country. I have been stopped 8 out of 8 times in the last 2 years. And just question. Where did you go? What were you doing? The same questions over and over again. In fact, where do you work? So I recall recently flying back into the country and replying to the lady and said, she asked me where I had gone, and I told her, I said I'd gone to my parents. Yes, and their address and their birth dates are still the same, implying that you already have that. Don't ask me again.
Right. But they don't like that too much, do they?
No, they don't. I have to admit, though, some of them are actually more friendlier than others. They know I've been through the process. I personally feel, that sometimes they are just doing their job because someone above them is actually telling them to stop me, and they really don't want to, or that they enjoy doing it, but they just have to. But I just find it unfair, being a good citizen who is trying his very best to spread this good citizenry within not only the Muslim community, but the entire community at large, to be able to go through this, because obviously that creates a negative image in my mind that doesn't necessarily help when I'm speaking about activism and so forth. Okay. But I haven't let that stop me.
All right, Imam, I thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Thank you very much.
But I always like to ask before I conclude, from your travels in America and your work as an Imam and being involved in outreach, what do you see as the future outlook, or from your estimation, what do you envision as the future outlook for Islam in America?
I personally believe that Islam will be very widespread in this country in a number of years. What I mean to say is that not only will the children of immigrants be Muslims, but there will be a lot of others who will come to Islam because what they find in the faith. And I also find that because Muslims in America are doing a fairly good job in integrating in the community, I also find that Muslims will play a lot of key roles in the advancement of our country and making our country a better place to live.
Okay, Imam, again.